introduction about the webinar. So this webinar is part of a large-scale effort involving collaborators from India and UK, industry stakeholders and different people working in the policy and regulatory space towards shaping sustainable e-micromobility futures in India and UK. And this is the webinar 1, where we are talking about the role of e-mobility, e-micromobility in urban transport. Because as always, before we deep dive into battery analytics and a lot of pressing challenges in this area, it's very important to set the context. Because first we have to fulfill challenges related to infrastructure, and then only we can move towards different kind of challenges in this area. So just a request, if anybody is keeping themselves unmuted, please keep yourself muted so that we can have a quick conduct. There will be a question and answer session and everything afterwards. So just to give a quick agenda for the webinar, I'll be giving a brief overview now, and from that point onwards, we'll be having a introduction about micromobility, because I know that there are many people who are interested to know more about it, the terminologies, the regulation space and the industry overview in this. So we have Mark, who is the principal engineer in the Warwick manufacturing group, who will be giving an introduction on this topic. And there onwards, we'll be having a brief talk by Alan, who will be talking about the user needs and infrastructure requirements in this space, working in Connected Places Catapult, one of the innovation accelerator in the UK, working a lot in this space, and who has worked multiple times with several countries around the world. And there onwards, we'll be hearing some of the operational learnings and business learnings from Mr. Sheikh Yamin, who is the founder and CEO of Curve Electric, one of the leading micromobility e-bike platforms in India. Then we'll move towards the policy and regulatory space in India, where Mr. Aviral Yadav from International Council on Clean Transportation will be outlining some of the policy challenges in India, in Indian space. So there onwards, we'll have a brief moderated discussion, and then moving on towards the question and answer session. So in case if you have any questions, please feel free to post it in the Q&A or the chat box, and from there onwards, we'll take it further. Just to give a quick overview of the effort, and so this is the main purpose is to have a common language for the webinar series. There will be 3 upcoming webinars in this session, focusing on battery analytics, the potential of AI in this space, and there will be a hackathon afterwards. So the idea is to set the context and kind of make a deep domain knowledge in this area, and all the participants over multiple sessions will be able to kind of understand this space better, and they can participate in the hackathon. And this will be applicable to both the Indian and UK participants, because there will be events in both India as well as the UK over the course of next few months. So just to give a context, so the project team consists of Amrita from University of Warwick, and we have Mayur, Dr. Mayur from IIT Kharagpur, myself from IIT BHU Varanasi, and we have Rutuj, who is again the founder and CEO of Simlionics, another very interesting player in the battery analytics and AI space. So maybe with this quick background, I would just quickly kind of discuss these things later on, but I would like to hand over the floor to Mark, who can perhaps start with the first session on, the focusing on the micromobility terminology. So handing over the space to you, Mark.
Thank you very much. So Mark Abanowski, I'm Principal Engineer for Micromobility at WMG. I've got a quick 10-minute introduction into sort of a UK perspective of micromobility for you all, particularly from a point of view of the vehicles, the technology, the regulation and the industry. And then I'd like to hand over to Alan, who will cover a bit more of the people and place side of micromobility. So first of all, a quick introduction to WMG. So WMG, or Warwick Manufacturing Group, was established at the University of Warwick in 1980. It was founded by Professor Lord Kumar Bhattacharya, a British Indian engineer and educator, a pioneer in manufacturing industry, academic collaboration, technology, and he worked as a key advisor to UK governments and building WMG into the global recognised education institution it is now. So what we do, historically, we've worked a lot in the automotive space. But we do research from aerospace to agri-tech, supporting industry from different sectors across the world. We specialize in bridging the gap between TRL4 and TRL7, sometimes called the Valley of Death, where we work with companies to get their technologies closer to commercialization. And we do work through collaborative funding bids, contract research, or specialist work with small companies and KTP teams. So onto the main part of the presentation. What is micromobility? Again, this is a UK perspective, and micromobility vehicles are zero-emission, lighter-weight vehicles for short journeys and last-mile deliveries. They can be used to both move people around, and they can be used to move goods or cargo around. They are particularly useful, but not limited to, dense urban environments where there's heavy traffic, shorter journeys. There are lots of ownership models. They can be privately owned by an individual, they can be leased, or they can be shared, available for public use. And they come in a wide range of shapes and sizes, but all with one thing in common: they are very fit for function. They're not luxury vehicles. They're not oversized vehicles. They're designed specifically to do a job. So a few years ago, we did a piece of work with the Senex in the UK, which laid out a vision for micromobility in the UK, and so what these vehicles mean for UK society, for UK industry, for the people of the UK. So a few extra points what I've said before. So they can seamlessly connect to other forms of transport. So they work well with public transport. They work alongside cars and vans and lorries. They are delivering profound carbon and harmful emissions reductions. They are a safe form of transport, both for the person using them and for non-users, pedestrians, other road users around them. They are accessible, so that they are inclusive, so that everybody has the opportunity to use them. They support better urban design and placemaking in public places, so they use space better in our urban environments. And businesses working in the micromobility space in the UK are growing and thriving, and also leading globally. And a key thing is they're replacing car journeys, and therefore reducing congestion in our urban environments. So what do the vehicles look like? I've got a picture of lots of different types of vehicles on here. This is a very broad definition of micromobility, and I think this differs person to person where you are in the world. But my view of micromobility includes all of these vehicles that are basically smaller than a car. I've split these into different regulatory categories, which I'll go into a little bit more detail later on. And I've also, in the vertical columns and in the horizontal rows, I've split them by moving people and moving goods. So on the left, we've got our bicycles and electric assist pedal cycles. And these can be for kids, they can be for commuting, they can be shared, they can be adaptive for disabled users. They can be two-wheeled, three-wheeled, or four-wheeled, and deliver up to 2 meters cubed of goods in their cargo formats. Moving on to the right side, there's a similar looking set of vehicles in terms of the roles they perform in the L category, so in the motorcycle space, and they range from small, lower powered, lower speed vehicles with 2 wheels. There are 3-wheeled versions, 4-wheeled versions, for moving people, for moving goods, all the way up to sort of small quadricycle or microcar type vehicles. In the middle, what we've got here are, I think, potentially what some people are calling micromobility, and this is a new class of vehicle that doesn't fit into the L category motorcycle and doesn't fit into the bicycle or electric bike category. And these include vehicles like e-scooters, but they also include vehicles, similar vehicles, which might be for goods delivery, might be taxis, might be specifically developed for a disabled user. And this is an area which currently there's no regulation in the UK to use these privately owned vehicles in the UK, but we are running trials of shared e-scooters in certain towns. I'll go into a bit more detail of the regulatory space. A quick showing of some Union Jacks where we've got R&D or manufacturing businesses in the UK actually developing and making these vehicles. So we've got, this is a small number of them, we've got dozens of UK companies developing and manufacturing these vehicles in the UK. We've also got, just shown along the bottom here, a number of other vehicles we're seeing emerging or looking to solve a problem in the UK urban space. We've got pavement delivery bots, we've got one-wheel self-balancing vehicles, and we've got different vehicles for people with mobility needs, from self-balancing wheelchairs to mobility scooters, all of which can be considered and may well be brought into the regulation being developed for the low-speed zero-emission vehicle space in the middle. So onto the regulation. I mentioned 3 types there. So we've got electric assist pedal cycles. I've got what makes an electric assist pedal cycle in the UK details here. I won't read them out to you, but I think very simply, you must pedal them if they're moving. They won't move unless you pedal, and they're limited to 15.5 miles per hour. And they come in different shapes and sizes, as we said before. Onto the L category, I certainly won't read this out because there's too much information on here, but there are lots of different subcategories of L category vehicles, from L1 up to L7, which ranges from a small low-speed 50cc equivalent moped right the way up to what is a small car or a heavy quadricycle. There's some images of those different classes shown below, and then we've got the new low-speed zero-emission vehicle LZEV category. Name is not confirmed yet. It's just one that's been used a few times by the UK government, and the government has committed to creating legislation for these vehicles, which includes e-scooters, when parliamentary time allows. But they've been using that phrase for many years now, so it's taking a while to happen. And then, but we do have rental e-scooters in the UK, so you can't use a privately owned one, but you can use one of the shared ones. And here are some of the regulations around those. There are some challenges around regulation in the UK. Legislation, regulation, and standards need to keep pace and are fit for technical, commercial, societal, and environmental needs. So what we've seen is lots of different vehicles, lots of different technologies come out, and the regulations and the standards have been slow to follow in the UK. So that's created a few different challenges. We've got a number of battery fires where unsafe products are hitting the market. We've got a lot of illegal use of e-scooters in our towns, of privately owned ones, because people are unsure whether they're allowed to use them. We've got the L category use of those vehicles is quite a challenge for a person to get into because of a complicated licensing regime, far harder than just getting a license for a car. From a technology point of view, lots of different technologies are being developed for micromobility, particularly around electrification, so new battery technology, new motor technology, new power electronics technology, new materials and structures, looking at composites, looking at sustainable composites, looking at novel manufacturing processes, so automated welding processes, new bonding techniques to replace welding. Smart connected vehicles and assistance systems to make these vehicles safer or easier to use, similar to what you see in cars, but that technology filtering down to smaller vehicles. We've mentioned already new, novel and innovative vehicle types, but there's also a lot of innovation around shared and fleet operations to make them more efficient and cost effective for either shared micromobility operators or last mile logistics operators. Finally, a quick look at the UK industry. I showed before the slide with all the Union Jacks, so you can see we've got dozens of different UK manufacturers. What we'd like to have in the UK is more R&D and more manufacturing of micromobility products, technology, services. but there are challenges around sort of nearshoring, because there are so many cheap imports, many of them with safety and quality issues coming into the UK. We've struggled with supply chains in the UK, particularly in the bicycle world post-COVID, where supply chains have been either too much stock or not enough stock. The lack of regulation is causing a problem. People developing e-scooters don't know what the regulations are going to be, so what they're designing their products for. And there's certainly a lack of investment in this space because of the uncertainties. We have done, so Connected Places Catapult, Alan led a good project previously with across UK and India collaborations in working with Indian micromobility companies and UK companies to share learnings and look to move on both those areas. I'm trying to keep the time, so I'll say thank you now, and I'll look forward to some questions later on and hand over to Alan.
Thank you, Mark. Couldn't have asked for a better way to set the context. So I would like to request Alan to take it forward, talking about the user learnings and from his experience working with the industry. Please, Alan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and yeah, thank you for welcoming me today. Hello, everybody. I'm Alan Nesselton. I'm Head of Integrated Transport Delivery at Connected Places Catapult. I hope you can see my slide, and we will make a start. So Connected Places Catapult is the UK's innovation accelerator for transport, the built environment, cities and local growth. And we're one of a network of catapults. Warwick Manufacturing Group is also part of the Catapult network as part of High Value Manufacturing Catapult, as you can see on the slide there. So our job, we are established by Innovate UK, which is the government innovation agency in the UK, to help business transform great ideas into valuable products and services and provide access to expertise and facilities, and to foster that collaboration between industry, government, research organisations and academia. As you can see there, we've got, I'm not sure if this is up-to-date figures, but I've got here 9 centres in more than 65 locations. They do spring up as we speak. And yes, at Connected Places, we take the lead in transport, particularly. So my team is the integrated transport team at Connected Places Catapult. So we're responsible for anything that moves, really, and with a particular interest in decarbonisation and clean technologies. So a couple of years ago, we led a report which had input from WMG and Cenex and a steer group in the UK, looking at advances in inclusive micromobility. So how can we broaden the appeal of micromobility and cater to a wider customer base? And you see it from the quote there, you know, it could be a leapfrog for other modes to become more accessible and a more inclusive way to reach your destination. But how do we do that? Well, I think the most vital thing is a thorough understanding of user needs and user requirements. So we did a lot of consultation, and we came up with our 9 user requirements for micromobility. So I'll just run through these. So we've got ease of use. So current micromobility vehicles are geared towards able-bodied users and don't always cater for accessible and inclusive needs. And this doesn't just relate to the vehicle, it also relates to the infrastructure. In the UK, for example, there's often insufficient pathways for actually using the vehicles. Sometimes the roads are too fast. It's actually illegal to use the footway in many cases unless it's a particular cycle route. So that leaves not many options for using the vehicles. Yeah, so I'll come back to that in a second. It needs to be cost effective. You know, current mobility offerings may be prohibitively expensive or exclusive for a limited audience. You know, in the UK, we're competing with low-cost buses, things of that nature. Yeah, if people are actually going to use these modes, they have to be competitive. And what we're really trying to do is tempt people away from the private car. That's the main mode shift that we're seeking to achieve. They need to be adaptable to user physiology. Micromobility vehicles are mainly focused on able-bodied users, as we said. Or they're kind of designed for the average user with limited ergonomic adjustment. The need to transport people and belongings. So the classic e-scooter is not so good for that. So how can we adapt the vehicle to make that possible where necessary? We're trying to encourage a positive journey experience, so offerings do not always consider the range of users and support required. For example, non-smartphone users might have trouble booking a publicly available service. And again, coming back to that point around infrastructure and how it's provided. They need to be high quality and low maintenance. So the vehicle is going to be, a public vehicle is going to be left out in the rain or harsh weather conditions. It's going to be used extensively, but it also needs to be able to operate with minimal upkeep, because otherwise the service will be too challenging to maintain, financially speaking. So we need very robust kit. Endurance for user needs. This talks mainly about the battery range and giving users confidence that they'll comfortably reach their destination. We don't want people stranded because their battery has run dead. Secure and accessible parking. There's fears around where we can leave the vehicles, or confusion around where we can leave the vehicles. Quite often in the UK, we see scooters kind of scattered around footways. Half of them are fallen over, which looks messy and actually creates a barrier for movement for people with particular needs, visually impaired people, for example. And also is just very unsatisfactory. So we need to think about the parking of these vehicles. And inclusive in design. We need to think about how we can make them adaptable for as many different types of users as possible, and avoid just the tendency to stick to aftermarket integration for additional functions and features. So we took those requirements and we translated them into what we called functional requirements. So the first one was being able to cope with different environmental and road conditions. So you see the example of the road on the left would be unsuitable if it's a high-speed road for micromobility vehicles, and no real option. There's a lot of talk within design guides about sort of segregation. Can we incorporate segregation? This is often a lot easier said than done, particularly for long continuous journeys, which has been a long challenge for bicycles in the past, but now becomes more important with micromobility vehicles as well. Example on the right is just a subtle example of how you can make awareness of low speed requirements. These bollards are shaped like pencils to sort of make you aware that there's a school in the area, there's going to be children crossing, and just that slight nudge can encourage drivers and even cyclists and micromobility users to slow down and be aware of other road users. Inclusion, discussed that previously, but the need to understand those requirements, the need to engage with people with disabilities. This is, it's often the case that ensuring that we have inclusivity will create social value, but not necessarily as much commercial value. So we might have to think about the funding. How can we create vehicles that are inclusive and infrastructure that's inclusive? And on the vehicle side, there may be modular components that can still be scaled in terms of production. And supported by safe and accessible parking infrastructure, as we've discussed before, there might be a need to charge the vehicles at the parking location as well. So we need to think about those kind of solutions and making all of the kit robust and durable. We discussed the need to have a standardized test to benchmark range for micromobility vehicles. So as I said, we don't leave people stranded with no battery and give people confidence that they're going to complete their journey. I think visibility is quite a big one. In the UK, in the winter time, it gets dark sort of 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and so people come home from work, they need to be seen. And the democratic of e-scooter users, they don't tend to be the type that wear high visibility clothing all the time. So perhaps we need to think a bit more about that in terms of the vehicle design, the lighting, and other aspects of the vehicle. Talk about the need to carry belongings and other passengers. I mean, this is quite an extreme example of that, but just being able to carry a bag or another passenger could help a lot of people. Provision of a seat, of course, more and more vehicles have come along now since this report was written, but in the regulatory terms, the e-scooter design was quite fixed in the UK. So it's actually more of a regulatory barrier that prevented people having a seat on their vehicle rather than an innovation barrier as such. And of course, for private vehicles, we might have to fold them for carrying them or for storage. Not everybody has a lot of space to store vehicles, so we just need to think about those practical elements. And then, yeah, affordability is absolutely key. We need to offset price against the value that we're achieving. That's all I want to say, really. And just as Mark mentioned before, we did run a big program where we tried to put UK SMEs in touch with the Indian ecosystem stakeholders. And there's more information on the website on the screen there, with some webinars to digest, should you wish. And that's all from myself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. Some really great points. Now we can actually hear from Yamin. Yamin, if you are there. Yamin has some of his hands-on experiences running this e-bike business in India as the founder and CEO of Curve Electric. So Yamin, request you to please share the screen, and the stage is all yours.
Yeah, I hope I'm audible. So sorry, I'm traveling a bit, so gonna join the call while traveling. So yeah, my name is Sheikh Yamin. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Curve Electric. So what Curve Electric is? Curve Electric is basically a public e-bike sharing company. So we have been for last 3 years now. Hello.
Yes, there is some network issue, it seems, but we can hear you, Yamin. Please go ahead.
Yeah.
And you can switch off your camera to save some of the bandwidth.
Very good idea. Yeah.
That's a good idea. Can you see my presentation though?
Yes, Yamin, please go ahead.
Yeah. So as I was saying that we have been in business for last 3 years, and we have been focusing on micromobility. We have started our region's first public e-bike sharing system. And in the last 3 years, we have done somewhat around 85,000 plus rides, and our e-bikes have been cumulatively used for 1,000,000 kilometers or so. We have a user base of around 35,000 users in J&K. And that being said, we being into impact space, we try to measure the kind of impact that we create in terms of the carbon emissions that we have saved. So we have been able to save around 200 metric tons of carbon emissions till date, which if reduced into the atmosphere would have had an impact equal to what we would have needed 10,000 trees to absorb that amount of carbon emissions. So that being said, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to this webinar. So I would like to share some of the insights and some of the challenges that we have faced in the last 3 years. So again, the whole thesis of our company is that we need to rethink how we commute in terms of urban mobility. So globally, if we include all the transportation and everything, around 40%, 40 odd percent, emissions are caused by transportation in general. And out of that, 25% is contributed by urban mobility transportation. Also, one of the key factors that we have seen in the developing world is that the the daily rides that people take, they are not that long. So 60% of our daily rides are less than 5 or 6 kilometers in length. So that is where it begs the question that do we actually need a car to travel 5 or 6 kilometers, or a micromobility instrument would be more feasible for such a commute? Also, we have to understand that, while developing the vehicles and the, logic behind having vehicles was to make sure that humans, move from point A to point B in the most convenient manner. But somewhere along the line, we have made sure that we use 1400, 1500 kgs of a box to transport a 70 kg person from point A to point B in the most inefficient manner possible in terms of using an ICE that is just 35% efficient. So we need to rethink, and that is where I think micromobility as a solution is something that solves too many problems, and it's too good, to be avoided, to be not think about, to be not taken seriously. So that being said, if we talk about the e-micromobility, because as one of the presenters earlier, I showed the whole spectrum of the, you know, uh, e micromobility, be it a bicycle, even for that matter, non-motorized transport as well. E-rickshaws or normal rickshaws, carts, things like that. They form an integral part of micromobility as well. But in specifically, if we understand the e-micromobility aspect, so as has been discussed earlier, these e-micromobility instruments include e-bikes, e-scooters, and other shared micro vehicles. Uh, Typically, the vehicles that are not used for uh, longer distances, vehicles that are usually used for shorter commutes and may not accommodate 3 or 4 people at a time, may or may not, right? Again, we have to understand that the biggest challenge for places like India is the first mile and the last mile connectivity. We, to a large extent, have solved the mid-mile problem. We have a good metro transit system. We have a good railway system. We have good, system of buses. We have other systems as well. But the first and the last mile connectivity is where the challenge lies, and that is where it becomes very important to focus on micromobility, particularly e-micromobility, because this will help us in turn increase the flow metros, railways, other transit means. So having that first and last mile solution is very important. Also with e-bikes in particular, because that is what I am more concerned with and I deal with. So these e-bikes, they are a very low cost instrument. They barely cost around 30 to 40 paisa uh, kilometer, which is, roughly 20 pennies a kilometer, I would say, 20, 25 pennies a kilometer. Plus, of course, power consumption is are pedal assist e-bikes, pedelecs as you call them in the US. So there is a positive impact on the health as well. And you can obviously pedal it out. So the issue of anxiety is solved. That said, shared systems of public e-bike sharing platform that we have, or any other platform that other companies or other startups have in the country or in the UK, be it bike e-bikes. So shared use systems, they basically uh, give access to the people to use these instruments without actually incurring the cost of ownership or the cost of maintenance or the cost of using these vehicles. So this and we have seen this in our case. Uh, we expected that the middle class and the upper middle class would use our e-bikes more, as they are more aware about this kind of a system. But the lower strata of the society, they are using our system like anything. And I think that is where it is very important that these kind of sharing systems, they empower the unfortunate in the society. They empower the people in the lower strata of the society, and it can, if you think in terms of long term, it can have impact on the education of the people. It can have an impact on the livelihood of people. So yeah, having these public bicycle or e-bike sharing systems do provide quite a lot of utility. 300 more than 300 cities worldwide have some form of shared micromobility systems. And importantly, each shared e-bike, and this is what we have gathered from the data that we have collected, that each shared e-bike can replace 4 to 6 car trips per day. And this is something that is of significant impact on the traffic congestion that our cities are facing, on the emissions that our cities are facing. And I think we have the ability in terms of, if we are able to launch these systems properly, that we can see up to 40% reduction of private cars on our roads, at least in urban settings. So that is very important. That being said, what we have experienced so far is that highest demand is observed for trips between 1 and 4 kilometers. Students and, as I said, gig workers, people in the lower strata of the society are using our e-bikes more and more. Uh, Usage peaks usually align with the work and academic schedules. So this helps us with one of the biggest problems that you face in an e-bike sharing system or in any public sharing system, that is the redistribution problem. How do you redistribute the vehicles? But once you know the usage and the pattern of usage, you are able to somewhat make sure that uh, you can predict the peaks and the lows, and how what number of bikes are needed at which place. So yeah, again, the challenges, the biggest challenge that we face in this part of the world is the infrastructure. We do not have the necessary infrastructure that supports the bicycle sharing, that support the e-bicycle sharing, that supports the riders. That is very important. That is the biggest hurdle that we face. We need to understand that if you put an e-bike sharing system, you put a docking station in the middle of a very, very, very busy road, you will end up, adding to the problem rather than solving it. So we need dedicated cycling lanes, we need dedicated zones, we need regulations around the e-bikes in terms of the speeds, they should be allowed to go up to. There we need to rethink a bit. I think 25 kilometers per hour is something we can rethink about. Also, the charging infra. That is another hurdle. We need to have robust battery swapping infrastructure. We need to have better batteries. We need to have the whole cell life cycle, the whole lithium-ion cell life cycle that needs to be managed properly. And then obviously there are some issues of vehicles as well, but I would say that is minimal. That is not something we as a company are that much concerned with. Then weather, terrain, and seasonal demand, that is something that is a challenge and has been a challenge there. So I think these have been the key challenges that we have faced in terms of scaling when it comes to e-bike sharing. And yeah, uh, I cannot emphasize enough the role of e-micromobility in urban transport system. As I talked about this early as well, that it does complement your mid-mile instrument, your buses, your metros, your rail. It complements them. It solves your first mile, it solves your last mile connectivity. It also reduces the pressure on parking. And I think we also need to understand that the most valuable real estate in the world is currently occupied by these parking lots. So a lot of these spaces can be freed up. A lot of valuable commercial real estate can be freed up. So and yes, when it comes to transport planning, we need to integrate the micromobility, be it bicycle, be it e-bikes, be it other modes of micromobility. We need to integrate them into the system. They need to be an integral part of the system, and not just something of a outside service that is being provided. They need to be integrated with the transportation planning. And as I was talking about this earlier as well, we need dedicated bicycling lanes, and of course, we need more and more parking zones. And I think public-private partnership (PPP) model is the best way to go, because if we talk about bicycle sharing or e-bike sharing, these are not some of the most profitable ventures in themselves. So in order for them to make sense for a commercial venture, we need to have some sort of uh, public-private partnership. So yeah, that's something that's very important. And the road ahead, I would say e-bikes will definitely transition from pilots to being at the core of solving the urban transportation problems. We need to focus on equity, safety, and system integration of our e-bikes with the whole transportation in general. And the plan has to be once design the transportation systems, we have to have proper planning when it comes to e-bikes and integrating these micromobility things. And yes, I would conclude my talk by saying that sustainable cities will not be built by building alone, but by smarter mobility needs. Thank you so much. I hope I didn't take too much of the time, but yeah,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Thank you, Yamin, for a much needed industry perspective on this. Thank you. So maybe we can move to Aviral now, who is a researcher working in this space, who has a lot more to discuss about the regulations in India, the battery space, and some of the learnings that we can have in the way forward. So Aviral, if you are there, could you please share your screen, and the stage is yours.
Sure, thanks, Dr. Ganesh. Am I in full screen mode now? Are the slides full screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, please go
Okay.
ahead.
Hello and good afternoon to all the participants, as well as my co-speakers and the host. So ICCT, I'll start with a brief introduction. We are a non-profit research organization. We provide inputs to the ministries on how we can tackle the two problems of climate change, reducing the carbon emission, and also in the near term, the air pollution, which is one of the bigger concern. So we work on almost all the road modes of transport, cars, two-wheelers, trucks, buses, ships, planes. But and there are a lot of research that you will be able to find. What you will not find is something on electric micromobility, and that is interesting. And the cause is in India, the government does not recognize the electric micromobility in its regulations. According to the Central Motor Vehicle Regulation, these are called battery operated vehicles. As long as the output of the motor is less than 250 watts, and the speed is less than 25 kilometer per hour. Yeah, these are just termed as battery operated vehicles, and you don't need to register them. Don't need a license to operate them. You don't need to wear a helmet, and yeah, you are not penalized for anything. So yeah, that was one of the reason. But yeah, personally, I am very much interested, and that's why I was part of this webinar to explore what is happening in India and UK. Okay, so Mark has already covered what are the different types of vehicles which are there. It can be cycles, it can be electric cargo bikes, electric mopeds, electric scooters, anything. In case of India, it should be less than 250 watts, and it should not exceed the speed of 25 kilometer per hour. I also have a small video to show you. I'll just play it. Is it playing? I hope it played well, or was it stuck?
Yeah, but we got the idea, glimpse
Yes.
of it. Of this video.
Nice. And this, if in case it didn't play, there's this man who is riding a unicycle. So that is also one of the, I would say, micro mobility vehicle from his home to his office, and it somehow became a news. And this video kind of covers most of the things I'll be talking about. May it be the need for electric micro mobility in India, where we have such huge traffic problem. May it be the need for safety regulations, and also the need for infrastructure, dedicated infrastructure for electric bikes, these electric cargo bikes, even non-electric bikes. So that infrastructure is missing. Yeah, so I'll be covering all those themes in my presentation. Oops. Yeah. So there are a lot of reasons why India needs electric micro mobility. And I'll start with one of the major one, which would be electric micro mobility will result in a modal shift. Currently, Mr. Yamin also mentioned, and all the research previously done says that about 45% of the trips by two-wheelers and cars in India are less than 5 kilometers. And we can also see here, this was a study. Let me see. This was a study done in 2017 based on earlier data, which says that about 50% of the trips are between 0 and 2 kilometers, and they can be done by cycling. And then about 62% of the trips are between 2 and 4 kilometers, which the government says that we should have some small buses or so. And then 4 to 6, we will cover about 71% of all the trips happening in India. I would say this is the share that we can target with micro mobility. Definitely less than 4 kilometer, but also some share of 4 to 6 kilometer. So this data is from Delhi, but we can also look at the country level. There was this research paper by a researcher in IIT Delhi. And here we can see this is based on 2011 census data, that the percentage of workers, there is a significant percentage which will have trips less than 5 kilometers. And then, yeah, if we talk about number of trips, so we have pedestrians with a very large number, and then bicycle, and then motorized two-wheelers or motorcycle or two-wheelers. So this is again the chunk which can be shifted to electric micromobility. Now, if we talk about modal share, the transport that they use. So up to 1 kilometer, definitely it's common sense that most people walk, some use bicycle, and then some use electric motorcycles. Again, we ideally would not want motorcycles to be used for such short distances. Again, 2 to 5 pedestrian, significant number with bicycle, all good. But then again, two-wheelers has a good enough share. And then some trips are also from cars. And same, happens if we increase the distance. The share of motorcycles increases significantly. And that's where I think the opportunity is. India has about nearly 50% of the vehicle sales are going towards two-wheelers. If we talk about mode share, about more than 50% will be from two-wheelers. So that's where the opportunity is, because these two-wheelers, they are fast, they are heavy, and then they create pollution, then they create noise. Imagine yourself at a signal at a cross section and the light is red, and you have bikes just emitting the smoke, versus we can have this electric mobility which are silent. People are patiently waiting. They are not frustrated that, oh, the smoke is coming to my face. So yeah, that's what I think the opportunity is. Coming to the other reasons, the energy efficiency, definitely, as the speaker before me said, why do we need to move literally tons of metal to move us 75, 80 kg human? So that's why energy efficiency to abate air and noise pollution, and also the sense of equity. Uh, we have lot more motorcycles available in India, and motorcycles are being sold. While motorcycles, who is the primary user? I would say about 90% it's men. We also have combustion engine powered scooters, but those are little bit less. And who is the primary user? Again, men, but women are comfortable with it. Now, if we have a vehicle which is not that heavy, which is not which they don't also need to power using pedals, then it works for both. It works for women. It's easy for them. They will have more mobility, more opportunity for economic engagement, and also the persons with disability. So again, that is also where we need or the electromobility equation shines. Then space efficiency. We already have congestion. The roads which are already designed do not have that much space. There are a lot of cars. So again, electromobility will result in that space efficiency. Then integration with the public transport. Yeah, now what happens is, currently, if you just take out your motorcycle or ICE two-wheeler, then you don't have it's not that, okay, I can only go through this vehicle to till 2 kilometers. So you take it out and you just use it to go anywhere. While with electric micro mobility, you will know that, okay, I'll be using this mode till 1 or 2 kilometers, then I'll hop into a bus or a metro and I'll just go back and come and see. So yeah, I would say it will promote more use of public transport in the longer trips. So now that we have the case, different cases for the importance registered, I would like to bring the focus on the case of safety. So there was this research by, again, IIT Delhi's Center on Road Safety. So here you can see the percentage of road traffic death, like what were the victims driving or what was their mode. And we can see pedestrian is across all the states is relatively high, and then motorized two-wheelers is again high. Also, if we look at who hit whom kind of metrics, so it's the victim is pedestrian, and about 25% in 25% of the cases, he is being hit by a motorized two-wheeler. And in case of bicycle also, motorized two-wheeler, and even motorized two-wheeler, he's also, yeah, they are colliding. Again, there are other modes also like cars and trucks. So this gives a hint at a bigger problem of mixed road use. So definitely that should be taken care of. But also we can at least handle this motorized two-wheeler impact if we have the lower power vehicle, if we have lighter vehicle, lower speed. So the momentum becomes less, the chances of fatality becomes less. So for me, this is one of the most compelling argument. Now, moving forward, yeah, I was wondering, but what happens? Like a lot of people walk. If we have electric micromobility, what impact will it have in a bigger picture of carbon emissions and yeah? climate change and is it climate friendly? Is it green? So I came across this life cycle results for different modes from Pronopher, who use some of the data from ICCT on buses and cars, LCA. So private bike, yeah, nothing compares to that. Again, the second most green was private electric bike. And then there were e-scooters. Then you had railway, shared bike, because you need lot of infrastructure. Because of that infrastructure, the emissions increase. That's why whenever we have shared bike or e-bike, they are a little bit on a higher side, but still relatively less than take this bus, shuttle, or private cars or taxi ride hailing. So that was on individual basis. But then the next question comes, but if we have electric micro mobility, will not people stop walking? Will not they shift entirely to this? So again, this study answers that that it doesn't happen. Even in case of like they studied these 5 cities, Berlin, Düsseldorf, Melbourne, Paris, Seattle. The number of walking trips that were being replaced are just 27%, 30%, 30% in the range of that, barring Seattle, which was a little bit high. Then they were also replacing a bit of buses and shuttles, and then taxi and ride hailing. So yeah, a relatively lower share of walking is being replaced by the shared e-bikes. So when we combine the life cycle emissions of these shared e-bike, personal electric bike, personal scooter and everything, and also the kind of mode they replace. So what is the net impact? And here we can see the net impact of shared e-scooters. Again, it was a net benefit. Overall, it resulted in lower emissions in all the cities. The only outlier was Berlin. So yeah, we can go deep into the paper on what was the reason, but the consensus was that yes, it helps in reducing the overall emissions by shifting to electric mobility. Now, yeah, I come to the last slide, or I would say, yeah, second last slide. So currently, what is happening in India? The cost is relatively on a little bit higher side, while cycles, which are the backbone of, I would say, the most part of India, they range in the price of 5 to 10,000, but the electric ones, they become 25,000 to 40,000 INR. So about 4 to 8% more expensive. Electric scooters, again, 30 to 50,000 INR. Electric cargo bikes, 60,000 to 1 lakh, little bit on the higher side. So yeah, either some business model needs to be there or some innovation to bring down these costs so that it makes more financial sense for the public to shift. Other than cost, the greatest barrier to this, which is holding back electric micromobility, is the infrastructure. We don't have bike lanes. We don't have proper footpath in the city planning. Even if there are footpaths, they are encroached. So yeah, these basic urban problems are again becoming a hurdle. And then charging infrastructure. Where will we charge these micromobility? Will we be able to take them to our apartment, or will we have a point outside the building? So those regulations need to be figured out. Then theft, vandalism, nothing new to India. It's common all over. Wherever we have deployed, we have seen deployment of electric micromobility. So yeah, that can be a problem. Now coming lastly to the policy and regulatory environment. As I said, these vehicles, as long as they are less than 250 watt motor, they are not even covered under any regulations. And that is one of the reason why they are not given any subsidy. In India, we had so many programs on giving incentives for shifting to electric vehicles. We had for cars, now trucks, buses, everything. but not for micromobility because these are not recognized. And then we have some regulations on battery safety. We need more on, again, anti-dumping also, so that let's say any entrepreneur, he just imports anything of any quality and just starts distributing it or dumping it, and that might actually be bad for the overall sector, might erode the trust in the electric mobility ecosystem. In terms of subsidy, Delhi had a good case where electric cycles were eligible for purchase incentive of 25% of the cost. And e-cargo bikes, they were eligible for 33% or up to 15,000 per vehicle. So these kind of incentives, if more states bring in, I think people will be excited, and it will reduce the gap with the market cost. So thank you, everyone. This was my own exploration into micromobility. I had a MTB, I converted it into electric one. And if you want to read how, you can just check out later. Thank you. Thank you, Agnivesh, and the host.
Thank you, Avril. Thank you for some really intuitive insights and cutting the clutter on a lot of things. So thank you. So I'll just take a couple of quick questions for the panel from my side, as well as then we can go to the Q&A. Maybe I'll start with Mark. I have a couple of questions for Mark to start with, but I think the most important thing I wanted to ask Mark was, do you think some of these regulations that we see, do you think they are slowing down the innovation, or do you think they're at least aimed at protecting some of the potential failures during scaling? So as somebody who has closely watched this sector, do you think what this regulation space has kind of, taught you kind of following that? Yeah.
Yeah, so from a UK perspective, regulation has been very slow, particularly around e-scooters and new vehicle types. And what that has meant is that without regulation, it's just become a bit of a wild west. People don't know what is allowed, what isn't allowed. In terms of vehicle developers or technology developers, they don't know what requirements they're trying to meet because that regulation hasn't been set yet. And so they're looking at other countries. So they're looking at European regulations in Germany, in Spain, in France, where these vehicles have been regulated and are allowed for use, and they're trying to meet those regulations. There's also a new talk, particularly around heavy e-bikes. An e-bike, what electrification has done for e-bikes is it means you can have bigger and bigger e-bikes. So we've seen a bicycle being a two-wheeled thing you carry one person on, to being a four-wheeled thing where you carry a person and maybe 200 or 300 kilograms of cargo as well, and that has significantly increased the risk of that vehicle if it's sharing a cycle lane with a kid cycling to school. And so regulation needs to adapt and keep up with the technology that has enabled the use of those vehicles.
Right. I have a follow-up question to Aviril on that, because as Aviril has pointed out that in India, we generally call it as battery operated vehicles, right? We generally mention it as a broad umbrella of battery operated vehicles. But in India, there has been a lot of usage of non-motorized vehicles for goods transportation in the past. Like if you go to the Delhi market, you'll see that a lot of cycle rickshaws are being used for transportation of all the vegetables and all these small perishable commodities. So has there any kind of been buzz in the e-cargo market? And I think there is one of the question also, that is there any kind of movement in the industry on this side? So maybe I request Aviril to kind of follow up on this.
Sure. So we have seen a shift to electric cargo, a little bit on some are informal. If it is smaller than 250 watts, again, you don't need anything. But we have seen a considerable shift from human powered to electric one, at least in Delhi. We have not conducted any survey, or because these vehicles are again not registered, so we don't have data. But if we are, I don't know, maybe in UK they are covered under different segment. But if we just increase the definition from 250 watt to a little bit above, then it becomes a electric three-wheeler rickshaw. And then there are a lot of companies which are being registered, and yeah, those sales are accounted for. So again, one
is that
thing,
the case,
yeah.
Mark? Like, has e-cargo bike has been a booming sector in the UK?
We've got a different ecosystem here. There's vehicles that there aren't really vehicles in between a cargo bike with 250 watts and an electric van. Those type of vehicles, the auto rickshaws, haven't ever been popular in the UK, and I think because they are comparatively expensive, at least in the UK. And there's no and there aren't many benefits to using them for an operator. But with the increased number of cycle paths and cycling infrastructure in our cities, particularly London, where the traffic is so bad that you can no longer drive a van through the city in time to make a delivery, but the cycling infrastructure is complete enough for operators to use that. So that's seen an increase in small cargo bikes which can use cycle lanes in our cities. It will be really good to see sort of auto rickshaw size vehicles in the UK, but there needs to be favourable policy to encourage use of those vehicles, because nothing's going to move the big logistics operators away from the vans they're very used to, from a reliability, from a robustness, and they're heavily commoditized, so you can buy them relatively cheaply in the UK.
Yeah, great point. Just have a follow-up question to Alan on this. So, Alan, one of the things that we have seen in India, all these companies which have come up in the multimodal space of e-bikes, which try to pitch it as a first mile, last mile mode to metro, in the end, they all pivoted towards, let's say, gig driver or last mile delivery. Like how people are, the segment of users are mostly who are delivery drivers in that segment. So if you see, majority of the mode share shift has happened towards that, and very less in the public transport last mile space. Is that something you have seen in UK as well? And are there any insights that you can add here?
I think, yeah, delivery riders do take up a large mode share of micromobility users in the UK. What we did have in the UK was the large publicly funded trials of e-scooters, where you can go and just use an app to go and unlock a scooter and off you go. And I think these are have been very popular, and there's quite a lot of data on evaluation of the success of those particular schemes, quite popular especially with younger users. Yes, so I think it's all targeted at particular demographics at the moment. And yeah, as I mentioned in my presentation, what we're trying to do is open this out to a much wider population, so we can increase the usage from all age groups. I think it's predominantly male at the moment. It's predominantly younger people that are using scooters, particularly. On the delivery driver side, it tends to be more focused on the big cities, on London, etc. There's less usage, I would say, in the smaller places, because there's just not the infrastructure or the facilities, and it's not as difficult, for example, to drive a van in those smaller places. So yeah, there are these natural forces that tend to push it in certain directions, and we do need to balance things up to try and level that out a little bit.
Great point, Alan. So this is a space where perhaps Yamin can add something, if Yamin is there, or perhaps Alan can just quickly kind of give a counter to that. Yeah.
Yes, Agnivesh. I would just like to continue that. Yes.
Yeah,
so why gig work? Why these companies are shifting to gig? I think that is the case of assured demand, because people might not use if you have 10 bikes parked, but at least in case of gig work and these quick e-commerce, you are getting that assured demand.
Yamin, did you see
I
something
think,
similar in Srinagar?
yes. Yeah, so I think the companies moving to gig workers is something that is seen pan India. And the reason for that is the shorter buyback time, payback time rather. So, as I mentioned earlier as well, so this model can only work if there is some sort of viability gap funding or there is some sort of help from the government. Because other than that, then I have to figure, my investors will pressurize me to look into how quickly I can get the payback, and then for that I need a short demand. Then I have to look for more utilization time. Then in order to figure out that utilization time, I end up giving it to a gig worker, right? Because other than that, I have to assume that at best, out in maybe 16 17-hour day, you will get 20 to 30% utilization. That will be only at the peak of the time, and you have to be content with that. If you are not, if your investors are not, you will have to move towards something where your utilization time is more, where rentals are more fixed, rather than them being different. Also, the other aspect is that since a single person is driving the vehicle, the maintenance is also low. So all of these things kind of make people shift towards the gig, which is not essentially a bad thing, but that does not solve the purpose, right? So that defeats the whole purpose of having a first mile, last mile connectivity thing. And I think one of the solutions to that is not overtly subsidizing the rates. Like in our case, we charge around 1.5 rupee for a minute, which is on the higher side when we compare it with the other players in India. But if you go on subsidizing unnecessarily, what will happen is that eventually you will have to move towards the gig. So in order to sustain yourself, you need to have that threshold wherein your operational cost is getting covered only through the rentals that the people pay. So that has to be assured. And also coming to the earlier point that I wanted to respond to, that government of India not recognizing these vehicles has brought in another challenge. That is that government came up with FAME 1, FAME 2 policy, and in both the policies, e-bikes were not part of any subsidy or part of any benefits that the government tried to put forward, because government doesn't recognize these vehicles in the first place. Similarly, there is no record of the sale of these vehicles. There is no, because they don't recognize. So there then the challenge is also with the quality of battery packs that the manufacturers are using, that are resulting in fires, and that are also kind of putting challenge on people's head. So I think government of India should recognize these vehicles, and there should be some mechanism of bringing them under the ambit of regulation. Regulation always is not bad. A light feather touch would be something that would really help the sector.
Yamin, a quick follow-up question from my side. So there is one question in the comments as well. So a lot of people are interested to know, because you primarily run a rental service like a bike sharing platform. Has there been any challenges that you have faced locally in terms of transport culture, supply chain? A lot of interest to know about the vandalism and theft as well, because that is one space where many companies have failed. And because you mentioned this is a business with very operation heavy kind of nature, is that something that you have had challenges with?
Yeah, so I think if I talk about the vandalism and the theft, I think just because we have a human intervention in the system, that has helped us a lot. So there is a person that is stationed at all of our docking stations. That kind of helps us with making sure that the vandalism and the theft is left to the minimum. Although it is also a challenge in terms of operations, but I think this is the only way the system will work. And I think other companies like Uber and Firebikes are also moving towards the same model now after years of losses and years of trying to figure out XYZ things in terms of technology. That being said, I would say that uh, yes, locally the challenges are there. We don't have a robust bicycling culture in this part of the world. Also, it is not something that is aspirational. People do not want to associate themselves with bicycles, but because we have introduced premium e-bikes and things like that, uh, that bikes and the e-bikes per se are becoming aspirational. So because they are becoming aspirational, so that is where a Gen Z kid is not you know ashamed of being seen on a shared e-bike. So they flaunt it and they are really comfortable driving around. So I think that have brought around the change because when we started, there was certainly resistance among the people. This was a new concept. People did not want to be associated with this. But soon, with time, with awareness campaigns, with some influencer collabs, people did eventually, think these bikes and people who use these bikes. That's why we have a user base of around 35,000 users who already have 200 bikes in Srinagar. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
I mean, it's great to know that e-bikes are becoming at least aspirational in the younger generation, possibly a change that we can, hope towards. Just one question for Aviral in the comment. Is there any kind of forecast that you're familiar about the micromobility market? Some insights that, something that you came across, Aviral?
Yes. So we have not analyzed it at ICT, but I came across a few other research reports and the market assessment. So not specific to India, but combined Europe, USA, China, and India. It says 120 million by million units by 2035. So
Right.
120 million units of electric bikes or electric mopeds.
Yeah, I know that this is an area where Alan and his team has worked in the past about the value chains for e-micromobility in India. So I think there are some literature that you can see in Alan's page as well. I think it was in Chennai and Kolkata, if I remember correctly, Alan, the effort by your team.
That's correct, yes. In fact, I'll drop a link to our report in the chat, just in case anybody wants to have a look.
Yes, yes, yes. Wonderful. Is there any more questions from the audience? Because we are slightly, delayed in our timeline. But any questions from our, co-panelist or somebody? Anything you want to just clarify? Right. So just to kind of quickly kind of conclude, this is the webinar one. There are 3 more webinars coming up in this series, focusing on the batteries, battery analytics. The next webinar is going to be on February 12th. So you can see on our screen where there is a QR code where you can just scan and kind of register for the webinar too. And possibly Amrita can share the link in the chat box as well. And all these 4 webinars will be leading towards a hackathon, which is scheduled in April of this year, April of 2026, following which there will be an industrial stakeholder engagement in Kolkata, and there will be a student competition in UK as well towards the June of 2026. So if there are no further questions, thank you everyone for joining on this webinar and giving a great start for our collaborative effort. So thank you everyone. Thank you. Thank you on behalf of all the hosts and as well as everybody in our team. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pali, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.